To celebrate the 20th anniversary of Quake, MachineGames released a free expansion called Dimension of the Past. Now this was not the first id property that MachineGames worked on, as they developed Wolfenstein: The New Order in 2014. Also, Dimension of the Past was not the first Quake Mission Pack, as there were already 2 released by different developers. Mission Pack 1, Scourge of Armagon, was a solid experience and gave us some great new weapon types. Scourge of Armagon featured a lot of cool scripted events. In the third map of the set, an earthquake occurs, causing the environment to shake up and change around you. There are Indiana Jones-like traps in the second episode, and overall, Mission Pack 1 does a good job of expanding Quake's level design. Mission Pack 2, Dissolution of Eternity, came out shortly after, and gave us more interesting locations to explore. Egyptian, medieval, and Greco-Roman aesthetics are rampant in the latter half of the expansion, and while they all look nice, I felt the level design was inferior to the first Mission Pack. Scourge of Armagon features plenty of new weapons to choose from. On the other hand, Dissolution of Eternity focuses on giving us new enemy types to deal with. These 2 mission packs are like the complete opposites of each other, and that's honestly a good thing. I'm so glad that these expansions are nothing alike and focus on different parts of Quake's gameplay. I think Scourge of Armagon is a bit more impressive in terms of scope and the actual set pieces, and that's the one I prefer at the end of the day. So MachineGames dropped Dimension of the Past for the fans that were really itching for new Quake content, and it wound up on the new 2021 remaster along with the other expansions. Before I talk about Dimension of the Past itself, let's get into how good this remaster is. This is probably the best way to play Quake at the moment. Nightdive have been churning out very solid remasters consistently, and this Quake release is no exception. Some people might prefer the intricacies of another source port, but all of them kinda feel different, and I'm happy with a remaster. Nightdive are continuing to support the game with new official add-on levels, similar to Bethesda's Doom releases, and also they've included a brand new Horde mode which is refreshing. This Quake remaster looks great, it plays great, it's on every platform, and it's pretty cheap to get. With that said, it's time to delve into the third expansion for Quake, Dimension of the Past. Right off the bat, this is a glorified level pack for Quake to celebrate the game, and it wasn't commercially released by MachineGames. There are no new weapons or enemies or custom textures, and this map set is as vanilla as you can get. Dimension of the Past reminds me of Sigil in that way, and that's completely fine by me. This was a labor of love and made for the fans, and I appreciate MachineGames for making it. The expansion begins in a familiar looking hub where you select your difficulty. There isn't too much to comment on here, but I must say that I prefer the hubs from both Mission Pack 1 and Mission Pack 2 more. Scourge of Armagon switches it up by having a tech-based hub instead of the usual gothic castle setting. In Dissolution of Eternity, there's a giant Quake symbol etched into the ceiling, which is such an awesome detail. Dimension of the Past begins a lot more low-key, and that's okay, don't get me wrong, but comparisons are gonna be made. Level 1 is named the military base, and just like every other first map in Quake, it takes place in a tech base of sorts. This level is extremely straightforward. It gives you the weapons you want right from the jump, and plenty of enemies to shoot. You will notice an increase in the monster count even in the opening level, and that's because it isn't 1996 anymore, and now computers can handle more enemies on screen. I'm glad that Dimension of the Past takes advantage of this fact in level 1, setting the pace of what's to come. The power supply is up next, and the title is indicative of what you'll be spending half the map doing. The player will need to go underwater and turn the power back on so you can proceed into the main door. I'm not a fan of constantly going underwater this early on in the expansion, but regardless, there are some cool little moments in the level. When you travel up this pipe here and grab the quad damage power up, the room illuminates and you are faced against a whole bunch of enforcers. I enjoy this encounter quite a bit, and I also appreciate how much enforcers are packed into the map. They instantly make firefights more engaging compared to the standard grunts and dogs. That being said, the standout set piece occurs when you enter this main door. If you try to go forward, you'll just get murdered by the turrets mounted on the wall. This caught me way off guard the first time I played the expansion, and while yeah, it is sadistic, I think it's a brilliant trap at the same time. You have to jump through these open windows and then manually turn the laser turrets off, in order for you to safely obtain the gold key and rush to the exit. These little gameplay elements are subtle, but they add so much to what otherwise would be a pretty mediocre level. The opening few maps in this expansion are fine and pay homage to classic Quake well enough, but they don't reinvent the wheel, which I guess is the whole point, but still. Dimension of the Past ramps up in difficulty and quality, so I wouldn't write it off just based on the first couple of levels. Plus, every Quake 1 campaign starts off with rather cliche tech-based maps. The third level introduces the Gothic castle setting, with ogres and zombies swarming you from the get-go. Unfortunately, you spend a lot of the time moving slowly underwater, since your main objective is to open these gates using various keys and switches. Now this becomes incredibly dull, incredibly fast, and it's a shame because I like the change in scenery from tech bases to moody castle structures. I just wish the gameplay was up to scratch. At least the part where you're up against these Death Knights while dodging the projectile wall traps is entertaining, but then you're back to trudging through these water sections. The most interesting fight comes about halfway into the map. There's an ogre to the right of you who is partially blocked by stone pillars and a Death Knight in front. It's a well-designed combat encounter, and it's pretty challenging since this expansion is rather stingy on its ammo and health pickups. I like that grueling aspect of this map set, and it continues throughout. At the end you get the super nail gun and you face off against a pair of fiends. I appreciate that the designer gives you all of the weapons you want at a pretty fast rate, but man, that doesn't change the fact that level 3 is a complete slog. For the Quake remaster, they threw in another secret level that you can access from this map. I'm not sure why they decided to include it as a bonus, especially because there's already a secret level you can unlock later in the expansion, but I'm not complaining here. More Quake levels is good to me. The Forgotten Castle is a fitting name, because it seems like they forgot to put this level in the original expansion, and had to wait for the remaster to actually pull the trigger. This secret map is pretty awesome though. It opens with a shambler fight, and when the platform you're on lowers down fully, you get jumped by a couple of knights that come out of wall panels. So far, so good, and much improved from the last map. The Death Knights make their presence known as they're crawling all around the place. I mean, it makes sense considering that this is a medieval castle. Same goes with the ogres, who are on patrol duty inside. A couple more shamblers pop up as well, but you might not have enough nail gun ammo to kill them effectively. Some people might not like how the expansion doesn't give you a ton of ammo to work with, but I think that it's one of its defining features, and I'm personally okay with it. There is an underwater section, but it's not nearly as obnoxious as it was in the previous level. Thank fucking god. This secret map is atmospheric, with the castle itself being intentionally barren, empty, forgotten. I mean, sure, there's a bunch of boxes that are left about, but that's it. The Forgotten Castle is a great level that puts you in a certain mood. The gameplay is decent, but this map isn't really focused on giving players exciting combat puzzles to chill on. So we're back to the normal levels in the expansion. E5-M4 opens with a gate that you can't open, requiring the player to hop all the way down to the titular catacombs. I enjoy this deviation from the Quake level formula, and the combat encounters in this map are way more fun than the previous ones because of the increased enemy variety. We have ogres, knights, fiends, and more, all working as one to kill the player. And it's classic Quake, what more can I say? My favourite part of this level is when you can activate this fantastic crusher trap to kill the monsters with. I can tell that they put more thought into the combat encounters in this level, with the Silver Key Ogre section being a real highlight. To cap off the level, there are 2 shamblers to kill one after another, which is great. And I love this underground dungeon area with the blood on the ground and the flickering lights. E5-M4 is the strongest level in Dimension of the Past so far. There are quite a few good qualities about the next level, including the nicely designed cracks in the wall and the return of Vors. The pacing slows down, however, when you reach yet another underwater section, and that's a shame. I don't have too much to say about the Stronghold. I feel as though it's just an extension of a previous map without anything to set it apart. Like I said before, the Vors are introduced in this expansion here, and they aren't too threatening. There's plenty of cover to hide from their homing attacks, and you obtain the lightning gun in this section, so killing them is a breeze. At the end of E5-M5, you take a portal into the underworld. Here you meet with a pair of Vors right from the very beginning, which was a nice surprise. Then you're literally thrust into battle against a group of Death Knights and Ogres, and I'm a fan of how you really need to think on your feet as you're spit out of a tunnel. Speaking of tunnels, the moment where you're ambushed by shamblers in these large sewer tunnels is awesome, since there's literally no cover, but you're aided by the lightning gun thankfully. The rest of the map is business as usual. I enjoy how Vors are included more and more as the map progresses though. The second secret level that you can access in the expansion, or alternatively the first secret level that was included into the expansion, can be unlocked by taking a ride through this lava and hopping into the portal. Along with being an awesome title, the House of Doom is another solid secret level. The player is funneled down these little hallways where pressure-based enemies are placed, and it's really fun trying to blow them up while avoiding their attack patterns. Once you make your way inside the fortress, you jump down this hole into the hellish cave structure. You don't get a second to catch your breath as you're now being attacked by Vors with their fucking homing projectiles. Oh, and also a shambler just in case you wanted a bit more pain. I love this secret map. It's straightforward, to the point, and has some engaging monster combinations. There's not a whole lot to comment on really. The House of Doom is very simplistic, and that's part of the reason why it's so entertaining. You're in a corridor, kill the bad guys before they kill you. Great stuff. The penultimate map of the episode starts off with a rather brutal trap. You open this door, the ground disappears from under you, and now you're about to get squished by these two crushing walls. You have to shoot at these two buttons to deactivate the trap, but to be honest, I had no idea that they even existed until I looked up a guide. Yeah, this is kind of a cryptic trap to open the level with, but I kinda like how it kicks your ass a bit. This is supposed to be the ultimate challenge right before the final boss after all. So there's a noticeable increase in the monster counts, and there's plenty of monster closets to throw players for a loop. But level design wise, it's pretty standard stuff. Speaking of vanilla level design, most of the final map is ripped straight from the end boss of the base campaign. There's no Shub-Niggurath boss fight in this expansion, but instead you square off against a couple of shamblers. Again. Even though I think that Dimension of the Past is a pretty decent level set, this ending is extremely anticlimactic. So exactly like the original Quake. Maybe that was their intention, to truly pay homage to classic Quake by making the last level a disappointment. Dimension of the Past is a pretty decent tribute to Quake 1. The aim was to make more challenging levels that were in line with the game's original design template, and also with vanilla textures, monsters, etc. MachineGames succeeded in what they set out to do, but I don't find too much replayability in this episode. I think I'll play House of Doom and the Catacombs again, but almost every other level kinda blends into the crowd. I drew comparisons to this expansion and Sigil, since they both use normal assets and are pretty tight on ammo, but Sigil has way more depth than Dimension of the Past. Sigil feels like a genuine continuation from Via Flesh Consumed, while Dimension of the Past is just a more difficult set of levels than Quake Episode 4, as decent as they are. That all being said, Dimension of the Past follows classic Quake design philosophy and doesn't stray too far from the original game. Dimension of the Machine, however, goes above and beyond, and is one of the most ambitious official expansions to date.